Have you ever picked up a product, maybe something labeled eco-friendly
Hmm.
or sustainable, perhaps, and you found yourself wondering, is this genuinely better for the planet?
Right. Or is it just, really clever marketing?
Exactly. Something designed just to make you feel good about buying it. It's a question that, well, it cuts right to the heart of one of our biggest challenges today, climate change.
Absolutely.
For a long time, there's been this kind of unsettling idea floating around. It's called the pollution haven hypothesis.
Hmm.
And the basic thought is that, big multinational companies might simply move their dirtier operations.
More polluting parts of their business.
Yes, to countries where the environmental rules are, shall we say, weaker, purely to cut costs.
And while that might make the air, cleaner in one specific place,
Right.
the overall impact on global emissions often isn't great, maybe minimal, maybe even worse overall.
But what if that wasn't the whole picture? What if the market itself, under certain conditions, could actually, maybe, drive environmental improvement?
That's an interesting thought.
Well, that brings us to green products. Now, we're talking about items specifically designed to have less of a negative impact on the environment compared to, the traditional alternatives.
Okay.
This could mean they're made with less pollution, or maybe they help reduce pollution when you use them, or perhaps they even help clean up or lessen environmental damage somehow.
So a whole range of possibilities there.
Exactly. So for our deep dive today, we're tackling a really fascinating question. When companies are sourcing these specific green products, do they go about it differently than when they're sourcing, regular non-green stuff? And specifically, does a country's environmental standards, its regulations, play a different kind of role?
That's the key question.
It is, and we're diving into some groundbreaking new research here. It's a study titled The Global Sourcing of Green Products by Heather Berry, Jasmina Chauvin, Yuxi, Lance Chang, and Nora Lee. It's just been accepted for publication in the Journal of International Business Studies, expected May 2025.
And this research, honestly, it couldn't be more timely or more crucial, really.
Why do you say that?
Well, think about it. Global supply chains are incredibly complex these days. And understanding not just what we buy, but where it comes from and how it's made, that's becoming paramount, especially for products marketed as green or sustainable.
But the pressure is on.
Immense pressure.
Yeah.
Companies need to show they're genuinely practicing what they preach, credible, sustainable practices, not just in their ads, but through the entire value chain. So this study, it helps us get beyond those simple, older explanations about just cutting costs. It helps us understand the more subtle shifts, the new incentives emerging in the global marketplace as we all grapple with these environmental concerns. It's really about more than just the economics. It's about reputation. It's about trust.
Okay, so let's start by laying the groundwork then. Let's talk about that traditional pollution haven effect we mentioned earlier.
Right.
For years, the sort of prevailing wisdom, and it was backed by a lot of research, including earlier work by some of these same authors, actually, Berry and colleagues, and foundational studies too.
Like Copeland and Taylor back in the 90s.
Exactly. They painted a pretty clear picture. As a country tightens its environmental rules, its regulations,
Making it more expensive to pollute locally.
yes, then firms have this incentive to, well, relocate or expand their production in countries where the standards are much weaker.
Lower costs there.
Lower costs, and then they just import the goods back. It's an undeniable strategy, largely driven by the bottom line, right? Reducing production costs.
And the global consequences of that are, frankly, profound.
Yeah.
This whole phenomenon really makes the worldwide pollution challenge even harder to tackle.
How so?
Well, while those tough regulations might clean things up locally in the country that supposes them,
Sure.
the overall impact on global emissions can be minimal because the pollution effectively just moves somewhere else. It can even lead to a sort of global race to the bottom on standards. It makes purely national environmental rules partly ineffective.
I see.
And what's really striking is that even today, for non-green products, this classic pollution haven effect is still very much alive and well. The study confirms this clearly.
It does.
Oh, yes. They found that as a country's environmental stringency goes up, the total amount sourced from that country actually decreases for these non-green products.
Okay, so the old pattern holds.
It holds. And they put a number on it, too.
Yeah.
A 1 standard deviation increase in a country's Environmental Performance Index, the EPI, which is a key measure of environmental rules.
Right.
That's associated with a pretty significant 13% decrease in sourcing of non-green products from that country. That's an economically large effect.
13% decrease. Wow. Okay, so even with all the talk about climate change and corporate responsibility, that old profit-driven logic still dictates sourcing for sort of conventional goods.
If you're so, yes.
But now for the really interesting part, the twist. This next finding, it seems to turn that traditional thinking completely on its head. What happens when firms are specifically trying to source green products?
Right.
Do they still gravitate towards those pollution havens, maybe just, a little less strongly? Or are we talking about a fundamental change in strategy?
This is precisely where the concept of green legitimacy becomes absolutely critical. It's the key differentiator.
Green legitimacy. Tell me more about that.
Well, think about it. When a company sells a green product, they aren't just selling an item. They're selling a promise, right? A commitment to being environmentally responsible.
Okay, I see.
And to make good on that promise, they actually benefit hugely from transparency, from environmental accountability, all the way through their global supply chain.
So sourcing from a place with weak rules could backfire.
Severely. Sourcing from countries that don't have effective environmental regulations or strong, verifiable standards that can seriously undermine this green legitimacy.
Because people won't believe the green claims.
Exactly. Firms build up legitimacy when what they do matches what stakeholders, customers, investors, everyone expects. But they can lose it fast if they fail to live up to those expectations, especially now with consumers so wary of greenwashing.
Right, those misleading environmental claims.
The reputational risk is huge, and the market penalty can be substantial if you're caught out.
So what did the study find then? Did they see this play out in the data?
They absolutely did. And this is the core finding. It's a direct, powerful reversal of the pollution haven effect for green products.
A reversal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of fleeing higher standards, firms are more likely to source their green products from countries with higher environmental stringency. They're not looking for pollution havens anymore, not for these products. They seem to be actively seeking out what you might call green havens.
Green havens, I like that. So higher standards actually attract sourcing for green goods.
Precisely. And the data is incredibly compelling on this. Remember that EPI measure?
Yes, the Environmental Performance Index.
A one standard deviation increase in a country's EPI is associated with an impressive 24% increase in the global sourcing of green products from that country.
Wow, a 24% increase. That's compared to a 13% decrease for non-green products.
Exactly. It's not just a small difference. It's a fundamental shift in the economic incentives and the sourcing strategy for these types of goods.
That is a dramatic turnaround. It almost feels counterintuitive based on the old economic models, doesn't it?
It does challenge some long-held assumptions.
So how did the researchers pin this down? Global trade is so complex. What was their method?
Well, it was a pretty robust approach. They analyzed a massive data set, the United Nations Comtrade database. It covered global trade for over 5,000 different products, spanning from 2002 right through to 2019.
Okay, huge data set.
Huge. And for measuring the environmental commitment of countries, as we said, they used the EPI, which is widely accepted as a leading indicator.
And defining green products, that must have been tricky too.
It's always a challenge.
Yeah.
But they were meticulous. They created a comprehensive list, 452 specific green items, by basically combining definitions and classifications used by major international organizations. Think UNEP, the IMF, APEC, OECD, the WTO.
So they used established international definitions.
Right. This ensures the definition of green they used in their analysis is rigorous and widely accepted, not just something they came up with themselves.
That rigorous method definitely adds weight to the findings. But it makes me wonder, is this green haven effect universal? Or are there specific situations, maybe certain types of products, where it's even stronger?
That's an excellent question, and yes, the study dug into that too. They found that the effect is indeed stronger under certain conditions, particularly related to what they call demand-side factors.
Demand-side factors, meaning things that increase pressure from the market.
Exactly. Things that increase the pressure for transparency and accountability in that product's supply chain.
Okay, like what?
Well, first think about consumer-facing products.
Things we buy directly.
Yes. The positive link between higher environmental standards and sourcing green products. It's substantially stronger for consumer end-use products compared to other categories, like, say, industrial supplies or capital goods that businesses buy.
That makes intuitive sense, actually.
Doesn't it? As consumers, we're the ones directly interacting with these things, and we're asking more questions, demanding more visibility into how they're made. We expect those green claims to be real, backed by genuine sustainable practices.
You want to know that the eco-friendly t-shirt wasn't made in a polluting factory somewhere?
Precisely. So that direct consumer connection really amplifies the need for authenticity and thus the preference for sourcing from places with higher standards.
Okay, so consumer visibility is key. What's another factor?
The second factor is the environmental awareness level in the country, where the product is ultimately sold.
The destination market matters too.
Very much so. The green haven effect is stronger for products being sourced into countries where consumers show higher engagement in environmentalism.
How did they measure that engagement?
They use data from the World Values Survey, specifically looking at membership rates in environmental organizations. So when the end market has a more environmentally conscious, active consumer base.
Companies feel more pressure to source responsibly.
Significantly more pressure, yes. The market itself sends a clear signal. We care about where this comes from.
That's a powerful feedback loop. Consumer demand driving corporate behavior upstream. What about sort of organized pressure groups?
Spot on. That brings us to the third amplifying factor, the activity level of non-governmental organizations, or NGOs.
The watchdogs.
Exactly. The study found the green haven effect is also stronger when products are sourced into countries where NGOs are more active. They measured this using data on NGOs per capita from the Union of International Associations.
And how do NGOs make a difference here?
Well, NGOs act as crucial watchdogs, don't they? They influence companies through advocacy, public awareness campaigns, holding them accountable. Their presence basically turns up the heat, amplifying the need for firms to ensure their green products are authentically sourced. They shine a spotlight on supply chains, making it much harder for firms to hide irresponsible practices.
It really is remarkable how these pieces fit together. It's not just government rules then.
Not at all.
It sounds like this powerful combination of market demand, consumer scrutiny, and civil society pressure. It's all converging.
Yes, and it creates a really compelling business case for genuine sustainability in global supply chains, specifically for these green products.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, what are the major implications here?
Well, I think it's quite significant for how we think about global trade and environmental policy. For a long time, the narrative was that higher environmental standards were basically bad for exporters, right?
Yeah, they increase costs, make them less competitive.
Exactly. But this study suggests something different, at least for green product exporters. It suggests those higher standards can actually benefit them.
Benefit them?
By enhancing their green legitimacy in the eyes of those increasingly demanding global consumers and other stakeholders. It flips the script. Strong environmental performance becomes a competitive advantage, a market signal.
That idea that higher environmental standards can be a benefit for certain exports, not just a cost, that feels like a potential game changer.
It really does shift the perspective. But it's important to add a couple of nuances here.
Okay.
First, the study is careful to point out that environmental policies alone don't automatically create these green sourcing hubs. You also need innovative firms developing the green tech and processes in the first place.
Right. The supply side matters too.
Absolutely. And you need those active consumers and NGOs we talked about, keeping everyone honest and pushing for accountability. It's really a combination of factors, technology, policy, and social pressure.
And the second nuance.
The second, and this is really crucial, comes directly from the source material.
Yeah.
Green products do not necessarily represent an entirely green life cycle or imply zero risk of pollution in the value chain.
Meaning they aren't perfect.
Exactly. Think of electric vehicles. They're definitely greener in usage than gasoline cars, no tailpipe emissions.
Sure.
But producing them isn't necessarily pollution-free.
Yeah.
And the batteries, well, mining the materials and eventually disposing of them, can cause significant environmental harm if it's not managed really carefully.
So it's about reduction of harm, not necessarily achieving zero impact immediately.
Precisely. It's about progress, about being better than the alternative, but not necessarily environmental perfection overnight. That's a really important distinction to keep in mind.
That is such an important clarification. It frames the findings realistically. It's progress, a significant step, but maybe not the final destination yet.
Well put.
This research, it really seems to identify a critical boundary condition for that old pollution haven effect, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
It shows us a clear pathway where, sustainability goals and economic activity might actually align instead of always being in conflict. That feels refreshing.
It offers a more optimistic outlook in a way.
Okay, so let's try and wrap up the main takeaways from our deep dive today.
Hmm.
For standard non-green products, that classic pollution haven effect, it's still around.
Seems to be, yes. Companies tend to source from countries with weaker environmental standards, likely to save costs.
But for green products, we're seeing the exact opposite, a powerful shift.
A real reversal. Companies are increasingly seeking out these green havens countries with higher environmental standards.
And this incredible turnaround is driven largely by the need for what you called green legitimacy.
Right. That transparent, verifiable commitment to sustainability. It's especially strong for products sold directly to consumers.
And in markets where people, consumers, are environmentally engaged and where NGOs are active watchdogs.
Exactly. Reputation and market access depend on it.
This raises a really important question then, doesn't it? Thinking about these findings. What does this mean for our global efforts to tackle climate change, particularly through trade policies?
Well, it suggests there's this powerful, maybe underestimated market-driven mechanism at play. It's not just top-down government regulation, it's also driven by collective demand and scrutiny from the bottom up.
It implies that our choices, maybe as consumers, as citizens, have these ripple effects, potentially quite far-reaching ones.
They certainly seem to.
Which leads to a final thought for you, our listener. How might understanding this fundamental shift in global sourcing, this move towards green havens for certain products, how might that impact your choices next time you're shopping? And maybe how you participate in local or even global environmental initiatives? Could our collective demand, yours included, for genuinely green products actually help reshape entire global supply chains? Could it push more businesses, wherever they operate, towards truly higher environmental standards?
It's definitely something worth considering.
It is. Something to think about and maybe even act upon the next time you're faced with that green option on the shelf.